Hello, I'm Kat, and today we're answering a very silly question. If Pokemon had jobs, what would they be? Pokemon is a very popular franchise of, well, everything really. Games, a show, movies, essentially it's something that everybody has at least heard of. My personal interest in Pokemon only really stems from the actual design of the Pokemon themselves, and although I find most of them quite cute, it means I'm not really an experienced fan. But today we're putting all of that aside because these Pokemon need jobs, and I'm the only person silly enough to actually sit down and research this. Before we begin, we have to lay out some criteria. We're going to define a profession or job as any work that you can receive physical currency in exchange for performing, legal or non-legal. There are a few exceptions to this that I want to bring up. The first is that there will be no professions involving the killing or trafficking of another living thing, except for like normal plants because for one, you don't traffic those, you sell them, and two, they simply just aren't really sentient in the same way as Pokemon or animals. So I think it's justifiable. Just be careful not to mistake an apple for an apple. It wouldn't be pretty. The next exception, which I'm going to put bluntly, is that there won't be any sex work for Pokemon. This is more of a personal ruling. There may be arguments for why you could consider it valid, but I really don't care. I wouldn't consider that for people, let alone something more related to animals. And also plants. You can't really get in bed with an apple anyways. Our final exception is more of an add-on to the first one. Consumption of Pokemon is banned, which means no selling off your tails, or in Applin's case, its entire body, to be eaten. We're also going to say that all Pokemon can speak in some way, so whether that's telepathically or verbally, which will end up mattering later. With all of that out of the way, now we can finally go over how this is going to go. I have created a wheel of 905 Pokemon, currently excluding the most brand new Pokemon added in Scarlet and Violet, as the wiki sadly does not have a lot of information on them right now. We're going to spin the wheel, and then we'll figure out which profession would be best suited for that Pokemon based on its abilities and appearance. We'll naturally be starting with Skitty. I don't think I need to explain why. And eventually every Pokemon will have the perfect job for them. One last thing before we get started. I think the fun thing about an idea like this is that there really isn't a correct answer to any of these. You can make a case for one Pokemon having a bunch of jobs. So I'd love to hear what you guys think in the comments below. With all of that out of the way, it's time to start with our first Pokemon, Skitty. It shouldn't really come as a surprise that Skitty is my favorite Pokemon. I mean, my name's Kat. Of course I'm going to adore the kitten Pokemon. Although my adoration for Skitty is immense, this Pokemon does have quite a few issues going for it when it comes to seeking traditional work. For starters, Skitty's a quadruped, and prefers to walk around on all four of its legs. Despite this, Skitty's not incapable of standing upright, and has been shown to do this before. However, it is fair to say that Skitty wouldn't be as effective standing upright as it would be if it were walking around on all fours. Secondly, Skitty is very easily distracted by moving objects, often even chasing its own tail and becoming dizzy after the fact. But I'd argue there's a line of work where this downside is actually an upside. Entertainment. Skitty is undoubtedly a very charismatic Pokemon, and its behaviors are a key component to the adorableness that makes it so likable. Being cute isn't the only thing Skitty has going for it in the entertainment field, though. Skitty's tail is actually quite impressive, and has been shown to be able to do amazing feats, such as juggling. A skill that not only requires a lot of hand-eye, or I guess tail-eye coordination, but it is also quite entertaining. The most viable option for Skitty in a modern-day world, with its unique blend of cuteness and ability to perform impressive feats with its tail, is most likely in front of a camera, uploading videos to a platform like YouTube. And with its triangular legs and extremely versatile tail to boot, it could probably use a mouse and keyboard, allowing it to do all kinds of things on a computer. I'm genuinely not even just saying that because I make videos and represent myself with the Pokemon either. I genuinely wouldn't find it very hard to get caught up watching this Pokemon simply just chase its tail all day. It's adorable. Content like that has proven itself to be sustainable, so I think Skitty would definitely thrive making cute internet videos. With Skitty out of the way, we can spin the wheel for our first random Pokemon. Alright, so it looks like the wheel landed on Hitmonlee. The kicking Pokemon is pretty easy, I'm gonna be honest with you. There are a couple of jobs that could be considered worthy contenders, but I want to go over why they wouldn't work, actually, and then go over the perfect job. First up on the chopping block is a professional soccer player. Now, at first glance, this looks pretty good. Soccer does require a lot of legwork, which Hitmonlee does have, but you need to be fast to be a soccer player. Hitmonlee isn't very fast comparatively to other Pokemon. Also, you have to have quite a great deal of knowledge about the game and, like, tactics, which I don't think Hitmonlee would handle. Another profession I don't think Hitmonlee would fare too well in is kickboxing. In order to be a good kickboxer, you have to have a lot of leg strength. Hitmonlee has that. but you also have to have a lot of upper arm strength. Hitmonlee doesn't really get that. He learns 2 punching moves through TM, Mega Punch and Throat Chop, which isn't really enough. Hitmonlee's true profession of choice is as a professional kickball player. Now, I'm gonna be honest with you, his defense would be lacking because he doesn't have speed or upper arm strength, but his offense would be really good, because if he's constantly hitting home runs, which he should be, he's the kicking Pokemon, that's his thing, he's gonna be getting a lot of points for his team, especially if all the bases are loaded. Coming strictly down to the fact that his offensive strength heavily outweighs his lack of defense, I think he could make it as a professional kickball player. Hitmonlee was pretty fun to do, but I want the wheel to give me something a bit more difficult this time. And it seems I got my wish because we're doing Duskull. Okay, so the Requiem Pokemon required quite a bit of research to do. Duskull doesn't appear a lot in the show, so I'm really only down to Pokedex entries from the games on this one. And the information they've given me has actually given me a really good idea. Duskull's Pokedex entries revolve around a few main things. The Pokemon can go completely invisible and go through walls. The Pokemon likes to stalk its prey, and there's a very popular legend surrounding the Pokemon that it spirits away bad children that misbehave. So that last bit isn't really useful, because kidnapping people is banned. But those other two, being able to go invisible and stalk people, could be very useful as a private investigator. One of the problems surrounding a private investigator that's hired to do a job on people is making sure that they don't know they're actually being followed. Duskull's ability to go invisible, pass through any wall, and innate stalking instincts would prove to be very vital in a line of work like this. Of course, that's not the only requirement to this profession, especially if you're going to be doing legal work. It requires a lot of critical thinking and knowledge, as you're essentially just doing detective work by yourself. Although we don't have a lot of media from this Pokemon, what little we do see, combined with its ability to learn Trick Room 3 TM, shows me that the Pokemon is actually pretty intelligent. When Duskull does appear in the show, it's often seen playing tricks on both people and Pokemon alike, some of which are actually really smart. Like the 2 Duskull that lived in an abandoned mining colony. They created a fake haunter to drive away some overly rambunctious, psychic-type Pokemon that lived in a neighboring town. Also, think about the alliteration on that title. Detective Duskull, alright? That's like 18 times better than Detective Pikachu. He could have been in that movie. Well, I guess that means it's time to spin the wheel again. Okay, I have never heard of this Pokemon. Carkol. Let's see. Okay, so we're looking at the Coal Pokemon here, and from what I'm reading in its Pokédex, it can breathe fire at over 1800 degrees Fahrenheit, roll around at 18 miles an hour, and it drops coal that people have used to power their homes. All of this is pretty interesting, but it's also pretty difficult. Coal isn't really used anymore, but we're gonna see what we can do. Alright, so originally I thought he could be a coal trimmer, but there aren't really any coal trimmers anymore. That's basically ancient at this point, so that one's a bust. Mining coal also isn't really an option because it's entirely a quadruped and it produces its own coal anyways, so why would it mine it? However, because it can produce its own coal, it could run a coal power plant. Although these are being phased out, that doesn't mean they don't exist, and Carkol wouldn't have to do much if he was one anyways. I mean, he sheds coal and burns it all by himself. He could pay people or other Pokemon to do work that he can't do because he's a quadruped. And if he doesn't produce enough coal, again, he can just pay people to mine it. We're gonna do one more because I think that's what we have time for. And it looks like we got Bewear, another Pokemon I'm not too familiar with. Okay, so we're dealing with a strong arm Pokemon here. Yeah, this one is easily the hardest one for me to do. My initial thought was that Bewear could be a boxer, but further research proved that to be a terrible idea, as it would kill everyone it went up against, so back to the drawing board. I spent quite a while looking through professions that would require one to be physically fit, and as I was doing this, I came across shiploading. Now, this profession does require maintaining machines and keeping records, but I'm certain that Bewear is intelligent enough to learn how to maintain these machines and keep records of the cargo it's loading or unloading. While we're on the subject of unloading cargo, this is something that Pokemon definitely is capable of. Its strength is undeniable, so lifting heavy objects would not be a struggle for the Pokemon at all. And because shiploaders have to work with ships, oftentimes they're pretty far away from people, making it a lot harder for Bewear to accidentally hurt anyone with its hugs. Alright, so that's gonna do it for this episode. If I make another one of these, I will be sure to include stuff in the comments that I think are pretty good, and if you guys have a suggestion that's better than mine, I'll be sure to go over that in the next video if I make one. So, yeah. Hope you guys liked it.